What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having an amazing Tuesday so far. I am so excited to be back with you guys this week to be sharing some more answers to your questions about real estate. So we are going to dive right in. I've already got a lot of questions to cover, but if you are tuning in live right now on the call, first of all, please put hello in the comments or in the chat. And I'm excited that you're here. Put where you're coming from. I love to always see where everybody is tuning in from. And then if you've got any questions related to real estate, digital marketing, content creation, anything like that at all, go ahead and start putting those questions into the chat, and I will get to them live on the call right now. So what's going on, Zachary? I see T. Craver, good to see you too. I love it. Hello, Rayshawn. What's up, Rayshawn? We got James tuning in from the Twin Cities. Israel, good to see you on here as well. Mission, Texas, fellow Texan. I love it. We got Pam from Canton, Ohio. All right. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Go ahead and start lighting up that chat box with some of those questions. I will get to them on the call here. But before we do that, I'm going to start with just a bunch of questions that I've gotten via email and also in the comments from some of my other videos that I've just released. So what's up, Brent Walgren, Jimmy? Hey, Wild Lily Handy. Good to see you on here as well. All right. Well, let me see here. Looks like I'm coming in super hot. I think my mic is like really loud. I apologize, guys. Here, let's turn that down a little bit. All right, there we go. I'm just fired up. I can't help myself. All right, there we go. I think we're getting within normal range here. I don't want to be screaming at everybody. But and be sure, guys, if you haven't already, give this video a like, as it really does help my channel, helps my videos. And then if you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe. I added that new little subscribe button down below that shows my live subscriber count. So it's pretty fun. If you actually hit the subscribe button, you'll see the number increase. So that is pretty fun there. But let's go ahead and start with the first question that I got. I thought this was a pretty interesting one. They said, Kyle, how do you balance selling real estate and family life? So that's a grett question. And you know, it's actually, I believe it was asked before as well. But I'll cover it real quick. Just, you know, as kind of, a lot has changed in my life recently, of course, you know, with kind of going more onto the coaching side. But I'll tell you, when I was, you know, strictly just on the sales side, it's difficult, right? It's hard to balance selling a lot of real estate, especially in this market. And if you're working with buyers, and then having any kind of a life outside of that. I know that I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and and it is tough to have balance. And so I think for me, fortunately, you know, I've got an amazing family, amazing supportive wife who, you know, kind of understands the demands of this business. And you know, and we kind of weighed the good with the bad, right? Like, you know, obviously I work a lot, you know, but then there would obviously be a lot of chunks where I would set aside, I'd say it's non-negotiable. I'm taking this time off regardless of what happens in the business. And, you know, to show that, you know, I'm still obviously supportive of the family, and, you know, and I want to invest time with my kids and my wife. And so, you know, yes, I would work really hard. And that's kind of how I do things, is I just work really hard for, you know, stretches of time. And then I'll go stretches of time where I literally don't do anything. I don't pick up my phone, you know, and that's just how I find balance. Now, of course, there are some things that I'll kind of, you know, share with you that I think, you know, help with that. Is number one, you know, pre-qualifying your opportunities. I think is really important. Early on, you know, we jump in and start doing things that anybody asks of us. You know, we'll go across town for a buyer, even if they're not qualified or they're not under a buyer's rep. You need to start definitely getting better at those types of things where you're pre-qualifying your opportunities and you're not just jumping at every whim to things, because your time is important. You got to protect it. You know, you got to put some safeguards in place to make sure that if you are working, it's fruitful work and you're not just, you know, doing the hustle bustle and the busy work. So that'll definitely help out. but leveraging and reinvesting early on as well. A lot of times as new agents, we get that first commission check, and and it's nice. Maybe you haven't had money in a while, and so it's just good to have a big chunk of money, or so you go out and you spend it, you treat yourself. The best thing you can do, especially early on with all of that money, is save it and reinvest it into your business to give you leverage. One of the first things you can do is get like a transaction coordinator that maybe you pay for like per transaction, just to get the paperwork off of your plate. And maybe even like a virtual assistant to take some of the monotonous tasks that you're doing away. Now, I know a lot of places you can hire virtual assistants for like $500 to $700 per month, like on Upwork, if you're hiring somebody from like the Philippines, just for like social media stuff, data entry stuff. Nothing that they're going to do front facing most of the time with your clients, but even that kind of stuff can really help out in your business. So reinvesting and anticipating to reinvest in your business. And then the last thing I'll say is just doing things not like, whoop, got a phone call coming in here. Let me turn this off. Is not to do things like one-to-one, but try and think of how can you do something one time and have it apply multiple times over. If you start getting in that mindset, it'll really help as well. So, for instance, instead of like if I was to answer a question for a client, rather than, if they say, hey, Kyle, what do I need to expect for the inspection period? Instead of just like calling the person up and answering the question or typing out a long response via email, I'd rather just make a Loom video. You can download Loom, Loom. It's an extension on Google Chrome. Make a video where I answer the question via video. I can save that video to my library. And then literally anytime I ever get asked that question again, I can just shoot that one right over. And so thinking of things like that, where, if it's something you're doing all the time, how can you basically do it to where you only need to do it one more time and then you can use it indefinitely. So as you start to think more and more like that, you'll get more of your time back, and it'll help you to kind of get that work-life balance more and be able to spend time with your family. So, all right, let me see. I got another one here. Let's see. Oh, actually, we got some questions in the live chat. So let me go ahead and I'll post this one here. We got this one it looks like this one's from Pam, Ohio Real Estate. She asks, 17 years in the biz, many years on Facebook with some success, tips on venturing into Instagram. Do you do some duplicate posting or entirely different? Great question, Pam. I think you can duplicate to some extent. When you get into Instagram, it doesn't have to be completely unique of your Facebook stuff. What I've noticed is there's, especially now more and more so, is that you got some people that, they just get on Instagram, and you get some people that just get on Facebook. And so if you posted the same thing, chances are they're not going to see, the same thing duplicated. And even if they do, if they are on both platforms pretty frequently, that's okay if they see the same picture posted or the same video posted or whatever. I don't really think that it's going to hurt you from like, the persona, like people actually like watching you. Now from like the algorithm standpoint, I at the same time there, I don't think that it's going to hurt either. I've done the same things where I post, the same content on Facebook that I do on Instagram, and I haven't noticed any ill effects. In fact, on Instagram, one of the little hacks that I do is whenever I do a story on Instagram, I share it automatically to my stories on Facebook. And I like doing that because I don't know that you can do it the other way around. I don't know if you can do a Facebook story and then share it to Instagram, but it's great that you can do one on Instagram and then just share it right over to Facebook. So I do that. And then whenever I do like grid posts or things like that on Instagram, most of the time I'll just, copy over and do that on Facebook as well. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I like to do it like that. Now, if you are just venturing into Instagram, one of the things that I will let you know that is very popular right now is, of course, video and doing like Instagram Reels. I think is very popular. And thinking of ways that you can just add value to your target audience that you hope to accumulate on Instagram. Just getting real strategic around that and thinking through, how often you want to post, and the type of content you want to post. And then in general, batching your content, I think is really important as well. especially for Instagram. So that way you can stay consistent. So, if you wanted to make 4 or 5 videos all in one sitting, all in one day, and then have those kind of be scheduled out over a period of time, that's how I would certainly recommend you kind of get going on Instagram. And you can even use tools like Instagram Creator Studio, which is a free tool that Instagram gives you. And actually, I think it's technically called Facebook Creator Studio, but it's actually, once you log into it, you'll see Facebook and then you'll see Instagram, and you can start scheduling all of your posts on there. So that way they're ready to go for you. So I would definitely recommend doing that, because Instagram is great. My general philosophy, because I'm not a huge social media person, surprisingly enough. Like, I love YouTube, I love my blog, and I love creating content. But what's cool about, like, specifically the relationship between YouTube and Instagram is I feel like YouTube is my way that I can be searched, I can be found. So people find me via YouTube. It's one of the biggest search engines in the world, right? It's the number 2 search engine just behind Google. But then Instagram is my way to kind of connect with my audience more on a personal level. Because on YouTube, really, it's just comments, right? Like, that's all you can do for the YouTube videos is add comments. So it's not super personable, but I love that link between Instagram. And so, which, as we know, for real estate, it's a relationship-based business. And Instagram does feel pretty intimate. Like, you can, get good relationships on there and get a lot of clients. I know a lot of real estate agents that do very well picking up clients from Instagram. So, great question, Pam. If you want, go ahead and type your Instagram handle into the chat there, and I can call it out. So if anybody wants to follow you and follow your success. All right, we got PM. What's up, PM from Poland? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Dom, we got you on the call. Love it. Good to see you, Dom. All right, Mark Hammond, create duplication. Good stuff. All right, Blake Salmons, utilize hashtags on Instagram. Pick the top 8 and make sure they are specific to you, your brand, your location, and your niche. I love it. Great point, Blake. Thank you so much. That's good tips right there. Awesome, guys. Well, let's go ahead. Still keep adding your questions into the chat. I'm going to jump into another one of the questions that I got from over the past week. So somebody had asked, I guess this person is just getting their real estate license, so they're not currently licensed yet, but they said, how do you prepare for being licensed in real estate? And so that's a good question, because I do get a lot of agents that are, eager, right? Like, they don't have their license in hand yet, so they can't actually, technically go out and start practicing real estate. But there are still a lot of things that you can do before you actually get licensed that can help set you up. So that way, like, day one, you're already off to the races. You're not just like kind of getting things going. So one of the things that I recommend to everybody right off the bat is to start building your list. And whether that's a list of 50 or a list of 100 or however many people it is that's in your sphere of influence that you either know or they know you, even if it's been some time that since you've spoken to them, it's still really important to physically, either handwrite out a list or maybe go and get a CRM system. Check first if you already know which brokerage you're going to join. If they've already got a CRM system, you may not want to go out and get a CRM before you get one from your brokerage. But if you know that you're not getting one from the brokerage, you're probably going to need one anyways. So maybe you could go out there and invest and sign up for a CRM. A lot of them have free trials, and then start putting names in your CRM, get their email, get their phone number, and then start actually calling them. You don't have to tell them yet that like you're able to start helping them in real estate, but hey, just say, I'm super excited, John, I'm actually got a major thing coming in my life. I'm about to, get licensed in real estate, here in the next couple weeks or whatever. And, obviously don't just make it all about you, ask about them, what's new in their life. And when you do that, you can reciprocate and talk about what's new in your life, which obviously at that point, it'll be real estate. And then the other cool thing that you can do is if you have holes in your database, like maybe you don't have their mailing address, maybe you don't have their birthday, maybe you don't have their email address, but you have their phone number. Maybe you don't have their phone number, but you've got them on Facebook Messenger or something like that. You want to start filling in all of those holes in your database. So you have a really complete profile on each person that you have in your list. And you can start doing that before you have your license. And because I think that's so key to be able to, like, from day one, know that you've got your list ready, you've got it organized, and then you can start calling on people and letting them know, the change to your life, and that you'd love to, work with them or anybody that they know. Because typically for most people, most agents, that's where you're going to get your first few deals, is going to be from your sphere of influence. Especially if you've lived in the market that you're starting to sell in for any length of time. If you just moved to a new market, maybe that may not be the best strategy for you right away. But for most people, that's what's going to be their sphere of influence that gets them those first few deals. So that would be my recommendation on that, is getting a list together, at least 50 to 100 people, put them in a spreadsheet, handwrite them, put them in a CRM, do something with them. Because a lot of times we have them in our contacts list, or they're on our Facebook friends list or whatever, and they're not in one central location. Get them in a central location. And then really one of the other things you can start doing too is be more purposeful about, like, connecting with them on social media. Don't just expect that now that you're a real estate agent, everybody's going to start paying attention to you, right? Like, you've got to be more purposeful about starting to connect with other people, get interested in what they're doing, like their posts, comment on their posts, send them messages, say congratulations if they had anything cool happen in their lives. All of that type of stuff is going to be vital when you get started in real estate, and you can do all of that before you have your license. So, all right. Here's another good one. I've got, how do you work with real estate investor clients? And so I'll say it two ways. So you've got real estate investors, and then you've got real estate investors, right? You've got, kind of the tire kicker, the wannabe real estate investors. And, when you're new, and maybe you're just starting to work with real estate investors, it can be definitely a lucrative niche for you to get into and start servicing real estate investors at a high level. But one thing that you'll learn very quickly is that not all real estate investors are, ready to go, like, know what they're doing, that type of thing. And they're really just, sending out messages to agents to see who's going to kind of be willing to do work for them at pretty much no cost. And really may never even end up closing a deal themselves, because it's so easy now for anybody to say they're a real estate investor. You can go and, start reading articles on Bigger Pockets, and, on there they basically say, hey, find your agents, go out and interview a bunch and see who's going to be doing all this. And so, like, they're over here, just scoping out tens, if not, hundreds of agents that they're just trying to see who will work for them, getting them, and CMAs, opening doors for them. And it's like they really don't have a lot of commitment. So you got to weed out up front these real estate investors, and really just kind of see, like, even if they're new, I'm not saying that you don't work with a new one, but you got to really know, like, what do they know so far? Are they qualified? Like, do they have cash? Like, what's their investment strategy? If you are going to start working with that clientele, it is going to be helpful that you yourself become savvy enough in the investment world for real estate investments. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to start, following things on Bigger Pockets, reading the forums, reading books about real estate investing, watching YouTube videos about real estate investing, just kind of getting to understand that world. Because here's the thing is the nice thing about a real estate investor is, I mean, it's going to happen less frequently, but if you can get just even one or two or three big time real estate investors, that could make your entire business. I know certain agents that literally will service one or two investor clients that purchase hundreds of homes, and that's their entire business. And so that's the upside of working with investors. So it's definitely not something that you just want to, like, say, oh, I'll never do it. But you definitely have to protect your time and just make sure that you have some safeguards in place to not get taken advantage of, just doing a bunch of work and never getting paid for it. So that's all I would say there. But obviously, if you're passionate about real estate investors and you like that world and you're an agent, it's going to be fun. I mean, like, kind of working with people that you think that, it's cool of what they're doing. It's going to make you happier because you get to kind of go live in that space. But yeah, you can go to the meetup groups and really just start to plug into that environment. And I think that it's going to be it could be a win for you. But it's not just something that like, a lot of times we'll get phone calls, right, as real estate agents, and it's like, hey, I'm a real estate investor looking blah, 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 blah. Most of that stuff is usually just kind of like spam. It's not like legit. Now, if you were to find an investor at, say, a meetup group, or you sought somebody out, or you were referred to somebody, or it was somebody in your sphere that you knew that was, looking to get into investments, that's a whole different story. So just, really be cautious when you get especially phone calls from people like that. But I definitely wouldn't say like, don't do it at all or anything like that, because it can be lucrative when you work with the right people. So, all right. Let's see here. We got Marcia. Hey, what's going on, Marcia? Good to see you. She says, what webinars are you recommending now to use to refer agents to EXP? It's a good question, Marcia. So one of the things, if you're interested in EXP, obviously there's no shortage of information out there nowadays about EXP. There's a lot of great videos. I've got one on YouTube, EXP Explained. It's like 15 minutes, kind of talks through the whole things. It's about a year and a half old, or a year old, but not much has changed from that video. I mean, there's a lot that's changed with the company, like internally and some of the stuff like that. But what I talk about in the video as far as the value proposition to agents has really stayed the same. We also have the modelexplained.com that you can check out, which is Brent Gove's video. And then I think there's also like a 9-minute EXP Explained on YouTube that's kind of more of like corporate in a sense. It's not made by corporate, but it looks more corporate, where it's like, slide deck and that kind of thing. And the biggest thing, though, I would say, Marcia, is that you just don't just send the link to them. I think it's really helpful if you can watch it with them. That way you're there to answer any questions that they might have as they're watching it, or that type of thing. So hopefully that helps for you. All right, let's see. Okay, Donnie, thank you for joining us. Awesome. Yep, very cool. Good to see you. All right, so now let's move on to the next question here. Somebody says, do you go to every client appointment? So I'll tell you which appointments I do go to. And for the most part, it is most of the appointments, unless there's some specific reason that I don't need to, or I've got something else going on, and I've already talked to the client about it and let them know, and they're cool with it. But for the most part, on like the buyer side, I go to the inspection, I go to the final walkthrough, and I go to the closing. On the listing side, I go to the photos, I go to the appraisal, and then I go to the closing. So like those are the appointments that I go to. And then of course, on the buyer side, I'm going to showing houses and stuff like that for the most part. On the listing side, of course, I'm doing the listing appointment, but I'm just talking about like after you've went under contract, what are the different appointments that I go to? Those are it. Inspection, final walk, and closing on the buyer side, photos, appraisal, and the closing on the listing side. So put in the comments if that's any different for you and why. I'd be curious to know how many people do the exact same as me, or if you kind of don't do some of those, or if there's any that you do that I didn't even list out. But those seem to be kind of the most popular ones. All right, let's see here. We got Kathy. Hey, what's going on, Kathy? Good to see you. She says, do you have a video on passive income? Not what it is, but how to get people to choose you as their sponsor. Oh, good question. So talking about like if you're maybe forming a team at your brokerage, or if you're specifically at EXP, like how can you start to kind of grow the residual income stream that EXP offers? And I'm going to go a direction here where it's not just necessarily specific to EXP, because I think there's a lot of agents on this call that, aren't with this, with the brokerage, but I still think that it's important for anybody to hear this, no matter what brokerage you're at, or what business opportunity that you're with. But one of the best things that I think you can do to get somebody to, essentially either give you their trust, or give you their money, give you their credit card, is you've got to add value, right, to people. And that's where it all starts. And so like whether it's getting them to join you at EXP, or whether it's, you are selling a digital product, or you're selling coaching or something like that, I think you have to start by giving some form of free value to some extent. and then having like a good, better, best, essentially, right? Like it's like, oh, you could, buy this product, or you could get this cheaper offering, which is going to, still be helpful. And, or you could partner with me, or you could buy my high ticket item, or you could get my coaching, and that's going to be even better, right? So you got to give people options. And when you have a setup like that where you're giving freebies away just to get attention, right? It could be YouTube videos, it could be blog posts, you could be doing Facebook ads and that type of thing to get attention, and you're doing some kind of a giveaway for a lead magnet, anything like that where you're getting in front of people, you give them some value for free, and then you have maybe a couple options for like the next natural step for them. I think that's usually the best way that you can get people to do something with you, whether it's partner with you, whether it's to buy your thing or whatever. And so the other cool part about that too is like with passive income, I mean, it's super, I love, right? Like earning different residual income streams. Like I think if right now, if I had to add it up on one hand, I probably got 7 or 8 different income streams, right? And I've got more than that if you count like each different affiliate income stream that I've got. But if you just counted affiliate as one, right, then it's probably about 7 or 8 streams that I've got. But building residual income is the name of the game, in my opinion, because especially as a real estate agent, it's really difficult to sell enough houses to like, build financial freedom. Like it's possible, it definitely is possible. I'm not saying it's not, and it also depends on how good of a saver that you are, and how much you invest in that type of thing. But I think also, a lot of us as real estate agents, we have so much more that we can give to people that if we just thought strategically about it, there's a lot of opportunities all the time that are around you that you can capitalize on. So like, for instance, I'll name a few of my passive income streams. And the thing is with like passive income, like it's still not like, it's not like, set it and forget it. I mean, like to some extent it might be, but I'm still working really hard for these income streams. But it feels a lot different than just going out and earning like a commission for a real estate transaction. But for instance, like, obviously I've got YouTube ad revenue. And if you think about that, like right now, I mean, it's probably $1,500 to $1,800 a month that I'll make in YouTube ad revenue. And which is great, right? It's a little extra stream. I never even like kind of considered that as a reason why I got started on YouTube. Obviously I got on YouTube to get exposure, get my name, get my brand out there, and help me to build my team. But it's nice that kind of spun off from it. But if you think about that came because I'm giving free content. I'm showing up week after week, bringing videos, going live, answering questions, so it's like, it's not passive, right? I mean, I'm working for that income. Now, granted, I could stop for the next month and I'm still going to get YouTube ad revenue coming in. So that's kind of the different side of it that, compared to real estate sales, that I really like. But I've got that. I got affiliate income, like I mentioned. So, obviously when I create a video, for me personally, I will only recommend things that I have used myself, or that I do believe in the product. I'm not just like, recommending things to make a buck. But the nice thing is when I do like something and I do recommend it to people, that I can get a commission or I can get a benefit from that. That's pretty awesome. But at the same time, it also comes from me adding value, right, to people. Like, so let's just say Red X, for instance. I'm a Red X affiliate. I've got videos that talk about Red X, how to use it, what it is, all that good stuff. And so I created, value for people, maybe people that don't know anything about Red X. And so then the next natural step is for them to sign up, and then I get a piece of that income stream, right? And that's just residual. It keeps coming in, it keeps growing. But it all starts from value if you think about it, right? Even, the EXP side, people that partner with me at EXP, the vast majority that do so is because, they've seen me from YouTube. They've experienced some of the value that I've given from this channel or from my blog or whatever. And then they join. So I think that's where it all kind of comes from is figuring out like what value can you add to people, because we can all add value to people, right? You just got to figure out like, what are your strengths? What's your passions? What do you like to do? Kind of start there, and then, start small. It's not going to look like what, a lot of times people get overwhelmed because they'll see like what I've got, or they'll see, other creators and like what they've created. And it's like, man, I don't think I can ever get there. But I promise you, like 3, 4 years, even like 2 years, you can do so much in that amount of time that if you're just consistent every day, kind of making a little bit more progress, and tweaking things, making things a little bit better, you'd be very surprised of where you can be in 2 to 3 to 4 years. So, all right, cool. Let's go and jump to this next one here. Let's see here. We've got Carrie. What's going on? The Boss Mortgage Coach. Love it. Good to see you. What do you use to go live on YouTube? Well, currently I'm using a program that I've downloaded on my Mac. I believe it's Mac specific. It's called Ecamm Live. I don't think that you can do that on a PC, but I may be wrong. But it's Ecamm Live. It's on my Mac. And that is the program that kind of runs this interface, right? Where you see like the templates and you see the subscriber count and the questions that come up on the screen. That's called Ecamm Live. And then I stream Ecamm Live to a web service called Restream.io. And the nice thing about Restream.io is that it's got a natural, like it works hand in hand with Ecamm. So it's like a natural thing. You just kind of like log into both systems. And what's cool is with Restream, you can actually send it to YouTube. And like right now, this is streaming to Facebook as well. And so you can stream to multiple platforms at any given time. You can stream to like LinkedIn and go live on there. And there's a lot of other like smaller services that you can stream to that I don't do. I just do Facebook and YouTube. It doesn't stream to Instagram at the same time, not currently at least, not that I know of. So I would have to have like my phone also streaming if I wanted to go to Instagram. But right now I just go to YouTube and Facebook. I use Restream.io. And basically what you do is on Restream is you create a new event. So like every week I create an event, called Coffee with Kyle or Questions with Kyle or whatever, for Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then when I open up Ecamm on my on my MacBook, I go and there's a little setting in the bottom right that says, what do you want to do with this, video that you're about to create? Do you want to record it? Do you want to stream it? And I'll say stream it. And then it says, has a couple options, Restream being one of them. I click Restream. And when I click that, it already sees the event that I had created in Restream that says Coffee with Kyle. I click that, and then literally there's a go live button on Ecamm. I just hit that, and then boom, I'm now streaming to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time. So lots of good stuff here. It does take a little bit of getting used to it, kind of figuring out the platform of Ecamm. But I believe it's a really good system. There's another one called StreamYard that you could also look into, and you can actually go live, I believe, on Zoom as well. So like if you are on Zoom, you could have a video, you could do a screen share, whatever you want. And in the bottom, there's a little thing that says like stream to Facebook. I think you can stream to YouTube and maybe LinkedIn. Can't remember the three on Zoom, but I believe YouTube is one of the options there. The only thing that I will say, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think on Zoom it's only like 720p is the max that you can do. Whereas with Ecamm and with Restream, that kind of combo, I can go live at 1080p. And now Facebook does have a limitation where I think it streams to like 720p to Facebook, but then it'll go 1080p to YouTube. So, because if you go 1080p or maybe it's like 4K or something like that to Facebook, it'll cut you off. It actually it'll let you go for like 5 minutes, and all of a sudden it like cuts the whole feed. It kind of breaks their system. They won't let you go live at that high of a quality. So I've made that mistake before. It cut me off like middle of my call, and I had to start it back up. Some of y'all might remember that was probably like 3 months ago that I tried doing that. So, all right, cool. Thank you for that question, Carrie. Let's go to, we've got Real Talk Tina. She says, hi, best way to generate leads online for free. Great question. I would say couple of ways we can go with this question. Number one, of course, I believe in content. I think that creating content, organic content, searchable content is an amazing opportunity. I don't know technically what your definition of free is, because you technically have to have equipment to do that, but maybe you could use your phone, like a cheap mic, use your natural lighting from your window. In fact, like a lot of you may not know, but like right in front of me, I've got a big window, right? So that's where I get most of my lighting from. I have the lights, of course, behind me that are color lights, but you really, if you wanted to, you could just go sit by a nice window, have decent quality mic, and record a video there. But so creating content is a pretty free way that you could start to generate online leads. I've told the story many times before. I know there's a lot of real estate agents out there that have YouTube channels, kind of the local based, where it's like living in San Antonio, Texas, living in El Paso, living in Seattle, living in Raleigh, North Carolina, like all these different types of channels that, they do very well. And I used to say like, oh, it takes like a year, it takes like 18 months before you'll start getting traction. That's not true. I know agents that are getting traction after 3 to 4 to 5 months. And actually getting leads that are starting to register. So that's definitely a free way to get some leads. Now, if you don't want to go that way, or maybe you want to go that way, but you're like, I need leads like this month, not in 3 months even, right? Of course, you can prospect for leads online for free. You can go into like online groups. You can post listings in like garage sale groups, like community garage sale groups in your area. You can post listings into Craigslist. They don't even have to be your listings, right? Like if you can get permission from an agent in your brokerage or even outside of your brokerage, just make sure you have written permission to kind of like help them co-market their properties. Then you can list those up, right? And there's a lot of strategies. I probably can't, talk through the whole way to do it, but there's a lot of videos that you can search. I've even got some that talk about Craigslist leads, and basically like how you can create a listing on there where you give some details, but you don't give away all the details. And if they want all the details, they need to, take whatever call to action that you're telling them to take in your listing. And so like that might be to call you, that might be to text you, it might be to email you, but you kind of put a teaser and you say, hey, I've got this great new listing coming up on the market, or this great new listing just hit the market. You put a nice, real nice picture of it. You put a couple of details, say, hey, look, if you want the details, if you want the price, or if you want more photos, email me, right? Like that's essentially the idea behind what you do to get some of these leads. And then it's all about consistency, and doing it over and over and over, not to where you're like spamming. You don't want to put like 10 posts in there in the same day. But if you can put, be consistent and do a post or 2 posts per day over a period of time, you're going to get leads. And then your problem is just going to have to be, sorting through, because you're going to get a lot of, when they're free leads and when they're online leads, you just got to be willing to kind of work through them. They're not going to be like golden leads, right? Where every single one's going to be good. You're going to have to pre-qualify and even expect that maybe only like 1 out of 35, 1 out of 40 are actually going to close, right? You might get like 1 out of 20, 1 out of 25 that are workable, but then, but they're not all going to close. So just be prepared for rejection, be prepared for a lot of just kind of like tire kickers or people like that. But it's not a bad way if you're just willing to go through and put the work in. And you got to stay organized too, because like when you start getting responses, you need a way to organize them to make sure that you don't just like forget about them and that you just like sent one message to them and then expected them to buy right then. Most of the time it doesn't work that way, right? Like you got to give them what they need then. They might ghost you for a week or 2 or a few weeks or months. But then all of a sudden they pop back up, right? But it's only if you have a good follow-up system. If you don't have a good follow-up system, then a lot of your effort will get wasted. So that's the best way I would say there, Tina, is of course content. If you can do it, hustling and just hitting the marketplaces, Craigslist, Facebook, that type of thing. Hitting up your sphere of influence, commenting on their stuff on Facebook, commenting on their stuff on Instagram, all the stuff that I talked about earlier, and just building better relationships with your people that you already know and that already know you. That's one of the most important things you can do in this business. So, all right. Let's see here. All right. We've got, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any of these questions here. Lucas Motash. What does he say? Here, I'm trying to read this. How do you recommend a solo EXP agent with no organization to offer value to someone coming in under them? You always have value, Lucas. Don't say that you don't have any value. I think that we all have value that we bring to the table. Even if you're, brand new agent or whatever, we all have skill sets that we bring, from our history. We have, different stories. We have different work ethics and hustle ability, right? Like, there's always something that you can offer. You just got to figure out what that is for you. Like what are you good at right now? Or, what are some of your strengths? Even if it's not real estate, like maybe you're just like good with numbers. Maybe you're good with contracts. Maybe you're just good networking and you're a good people person. Maybe you're good at follow up, right? Like, that's the thing is like sometimes your value can just be that you follow up better than anybody else. And so it's like you could get an agent that I lost because I didn't follow up good enough. There's a lot of agents out there that don't follow up good enough. One of the things that's important is that people know your heart, right? Like they know that you're willing to help, even if you don't have all the experience. If you can say, "Hey, look, here's what I'm doing already," people they like kind of that energy, right? Like everybody's a lot about energy, and so if you've got good energy, you're putting out good vibes, you're positive. Even if you don't maybe have the biggest track record of all this stuff, or if you haven't built everything that some other content creator has built, that doesn't matter. I mean, people are joining people every day, naming other people than me, right? Like, let's just say, I think like in general for like EXP, we're adding like 1,000 agents a week. And I might add one or two, right? So there's 998 agents that are joining somebody else every single week that are not me. And so, it's not just about like, oh, you got to have all this content or you got to have all this value. It's all about you and kind of, building that relationship with people, giving good energy, following up with them, being there for them. That I think is the biggest thing that you can do. So that's a value in and of itself. So hope that helps, Lucas. All right. Tina says, I have a computer, a ring light, a remote job, 2 Uber contracts in 2 weeks. We'll try this too. Two under contract in 2 weeks. Nice. That is awesome. Way to go. You getting going at it. That's awesome. Congrats, Tina. All right. Let's see. Kathy asks, how fast are houses selling in Austin? They're going to in 2 to 3 days. Here is this the normal market right now. Yeah, well, so technically I'm in just north of San Antonio, but Austin is pretty similar. Yeah, homes are the first weekend you put them up. They're typically multiple offers. That's kind of the feedback across the country, in just about every market, especially like certain price points. Luxury, might be a little slower, but it's still depending on like if you price it pretty good. It's going to go quickly. So yeah, clean homes under 400,000. They're gone usually the first weekend. So that's not uncommon. Let's see here. Cool. Yeah, Trenton. Oh, thanks so much, Trent. This was actually in response to Lucas's question, and I think this is a great thing that I didn't actually even talk about. But he says you can connect them with some of the training that is provided by your upline. So that is a good point. So Lucas, figure out who's in your sponsorship line. Maybe not just your direct sponsor, but the people above them, the people above them, the people above them. If you go into your EXP dashboard up in the top right, it shows your entire upline kind of sponsorship levels. And call them, text them, figure out like, hey, do you offer anything? Do you have any, handouts? Do you have any, live trainings that you do weekly? Do you have anything like, just start to figure it out. But typically if you got, you can look 7 tiers above you, there's going to be somebody in there that's doing something that you can plug into, right? And if you're part of their 7-tier downline, they get a benefit from you growing your group. So it's in their best interest, to help you out as well. So look into that, Lucas. Great point there. Appreciate that, Trent. All right. Lucas, you said you don't have an upline. I've never heard of that. So I guess you just named EXP as your sponsor, which is possible. You can do that. I never recommend it. If you've already done that, then obviously it's kind of a little too late now. You can't switch, but you definitely, I think there's very rare that I see agents that don't have an upline. I try, and that's why I just made a video actually just the other day that talks about how important it is to name, a good sponsor. Your sponsor left EXP. That's fine. That doesn't mean you don't have an upline. You still have an upline. You just have an empty hole right above you. My sponsor is not even at EXP, right? So like literally, it doesn't matter. But I still have people above them that that basically like I call my sponsor, right? Like Pat Hayes, Brent Walgren, like these people, Rob Flick, Scott Lewis, Gene Frederick. They're still in my upline, even though my direct sponsor may not be here. So that doesn't matter. Just look at who's above that person, and you're still in their group, even if your sponsor left. So don't think that you don't have an upline. You certainly do. Okay. Best ways to follow up on leads. I have Follow Up Boss and Call Action for CRM. So good question. Follow up is a tricky thing, right? What I will say, because it is so tricky, is to try and keep it as simple as possible. I know a lot of agents, they try and set up all these like real kind of, complex systems where it's like, well, if they're a seller, they get all this. If they're a buyer, they get all this. If they're a new first time home buyer, I put them on this little thing, or I, call them here or there. I mean, yes, that will be important when you have the bandwidth, the capacity to kind of do all of that. But in the beginning, just following up in general, like a consistent process, is more important than trying to segment your list and be very, dialed in for them. So what I would do, Tina, is just figure out like, number one is like, what are the majority of your leads right now that are in your database? Like if they're sphere of influence or if they're, online leads. I think you need to have a little bit of a different process. Of course, obviously, if there's, people that versus people that you don't know or that may not know you, that's kind of the distinction that I would make. In fact, like one of the things that I do is I make a distinguishing remark on my CRM for agent or for leads that I've never conversed with them. Like maybe they registered or they signed up for something of mine, but I've never actually had a physical conversation with them. I call that just an inquiry. They're not even a lead yet at that point. They're just an inquiry, right? And until I actually set up something where like I've physically spoken to them, I've jumped on a Zoom call with them, or I've met them in person, they're not a lead, right? And so now when they become a lead, now that's a whole different story, right? And there's a different process that I'll take with people that, I've actually had a conversation with. I kind of know their motivation. I know what their, situation is. And I think you can get a little bit more specific for that. Now, when they're just an inquiry, I think it's pretty easy to set up some kind of like an autoresponder system that's based on value adding to them. If like, you always want to think about it, like don't like, I made the mistake early on, especially where like, when people would register for stuff of mine, they'd come into my space somehow, some way. I made the mistake where like all the stuff that I sent to them was like about me. It was like, hey, I've been in the business X amount of years. I've, here's some testimonials of mine. Here's all this stuff. And I mean, it's good. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to like get them to trust you more so, if you can add value to them. So like figure out, like maybe like 4 pieces of content. Maybe you didn't even create them. Maybe it's somebody else that created them, but you just know that it's very helpful for people that get to know you, that they need to know. And you like, it could be, blog posts, it could be YouTube videos, could be anything. Now, obviously, if you can make them yourself, if it's like a video, that'll help build trust for you and it'll build your expertise really quickly. But even if it's not, just being extremely helpful to people that are inquiries, it gives you a better chance of them turning into a lead it gives you a better chance that they'll actually accept your phone call, that they'll respond to your text message, they'll respond to your email. But it does, like in the beginning, just think about that. Like if you get all these people that are interested, what's like a quick and easy way that you can standardize and make sure that they get 4 or 5 helpful pieces of content right up front that shows that you're willing to help out, you're willing to give things to people. And then those that convert into a lead, somehow you speak to them, they're interested, they become a lead. Now that's where I almost kind of like use more of like a task-based system based on their situation. So like once I know a little bit better of what they tell me, if they're like, yeah, like we're just kind of getting us started, but we're probably looking more towards the summertime, say, great. Hey, well, is it cool if I, just continue to follow up with you, regularly just to check and see, if anything changes? And most of the time they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, no problem, right? So then I'll put it down like, okay, give this person a call in 2 weeks. And I just use tasks at that point once I know that they're a lead. I do set up everybody in my database to at least get touched once per month. And you could even go once every 2 weeks, just depending on what your comfort level is. But like, for instance, all of my leads, the people that know me or I know them, I either have them set up on like a property analysis where like I use KV Core. So it sends out like an analysis of their market, the neighborhood. If they own a house, if they're sellers, it'll send that once a month. And if they're a buyer, like if they don't own a house, but maybe they're not even ready to buy yet, I still set them up on a saved search for what they're most likely to be interested in, right? So like if I kind of know like, hey, this person's like way down the road, maybe they're renting and, they're just a friend of mine, but, they might buy someday, I'll still set them up on a saved search that at least sends them a search usually every week to every 2 weeks. So they're seeing stuff from me. They can, of course, opt out if they want. But that way, they're getting cool stuff. Or the other fun thing that I'll do is if I don't know anything about what they're looking for, is I'll set them up on just to receive like luxury property alerts. Because, believe it or not, like people actually, they don't mind getting those. They'll stay subscribed just because they like seeing $1 million listings or $2 million and up listings in their city, right? Like, and so it just depends. But, staying top of mind for them is important. So that's kind of the way that I look at follow-up. So I hope that helps. All right, guys, we got about 10 minutes, so go ahead and keep going and putting questions in there. Keep answering them here. We got about another 10 minutes. Trenton asks, how do you check your upline again? You've got to log into your My EXP dashboard, and then up in the top right where your name is, if you click on that, it's like a little settings thing. It says like sponsorship line or something. You click on that, and then it shows you the 7 people that are above you in your sponsorship line. All right, let's see here. We got Israel. He asks, what auto dialer do you recommend and how exactly do they work? I've heard that some dialers will call multiple numbers at the same time. So what do you do when you get multiple answers? Great question, Israel. I do recommend the dialer that RedX provides. And I actually have a link down below in the description of all my videos that if you sign up for RedX, you actually get $150 setup fee waived using my link. So if you do want to check it out, it's pretty low cost to get started with it, but they use the Vortex system, and you can either choose either doing a single line dialer or a triple line dialer. So that's kind of what we were talking about. So there's basically 3 options: manual dial, like where you're dialing by hand. You got a single line dialer where you got a system that's kind of dialing for you. And then you got the triple line dialer, which is like calling multiple numbers at the same time. I recommend definitely in the beginning just doing a single line dialer until you really get that figured out and get good at it. And then once you've done that for, even maybe a month or 2 months, and you feel ready to move up to a triple line dialer, go ahead. It's so much faster though going to a triple line dialer. The way that it typically works with a triple line is like, whenever, let's say it's calling 3 numbers at the same time, whichever one connects first, it'll basically drop the other 2. You can have it to where it drops a voicemail or it just hangs up, whichever way you want it to do, and you pre-record a voicemail. So, let's say it connects you to one person, the other 2, it'll immediately at that point drop, or it'll just go to a voicemail and then leaves that voicemail. Now, what you're going to end up finding is that like a lot of those times, those other 2 that you didn't connect with, they'll start calling back, right? They start calling back the line. And so RedX is trying to, filter through that and connect you back to those people. And so it does get a little hectic. I'll be honest, like for the most part, I always like just kind of sticking to the single line dialer. You can still dial in general about 50 dials an hour on a single line dial. So, I mean, that's a lot, like you really don't need to do more than that. Now, triple line, I've heard people can do up to 200 dials an hour. It of course, depends on how good your numbers are and that type of stuff, how often you're connecting, how long you're staying on the phone with people. But it's not unheard of that people can get 200 calls, dials per hour. That doesn't mean you're talking to 200 people, obviously, but 200 dials per hour. And and so, I mean, it's just really crazy because I like to log all my notes and stuff like that. I'll even pause, like if I'm on a single line dialer, if I have a good connection with somebody and, I talk to them for a bit, I'll pause it, type my notes, and then boom, I turn the dialer back on and it starts just going, right? And that's fast enough for most people, but you could try and experiment with the triple line, but it actually costs more for the triple line too. So it just depends. I would say try that single line, see how that goes for you. I definitely think having at least a single line dialer is way better than manual dialing, though. It will save you a lot of time. And the other thing too, this is what I realized with having a dialer, is you get in your head way too often if you don't have a dialer system. Because like if you're manually dialing, you'll see a number, and you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't call this number. Like, whereas like on a single line dialer, it's just going through. It doesn't know, right? So it's just dialing, dialing, dialing. And so like, I mean, it would connect me with people. I'm like, oh, like I really didn't want to talk to this person right now, but I was on the phone and it ended up being a great call or something, right? And so you might just like, it's kind of like a mental thing that when you just throw it into the dialer, it's just going to go and it's going to, you put all the numbers that you want it to call ahead of time. You can have it call expireds for sale by owners. You can have it do circle prospecting. You can have it call your sphere of influence list, right? Like if you've got your sphere of influence with all your phone numbers, you can go through like that. So you can have it do whatever you tell it to do. And, and I think it's super efficient. It's certainly the way to go. If you are wanting to prospect, which we should all be wanting to prospect, right? And be more efficient. So good question, Israel. Appreciate that. Hope that helped. All right. Let's see. James Hamlin, what should and should not be expected of a sponsor in EXP? So good question. I think there's a lot of people that, do wonder about that. Go check out my video where I do talk about like what sponsorship means at EXP, James. I just put it out like 2 or 3 days ago. So it's pretty recent and relevant. But the definition of a sponsor at EXP is just basically the person who is most influential to your decision to join the company. There is no expectation or criteria that says that person has an ongoing obligation to like help you be successful or anything like that. Now, of course, every sponsor is different and they have different feelings as far as like what they offer, what they want to do with their agents that do choose to name them as their sponsor. So like, I talk about the different things that I do with my group. And, and so I do think it's important that you consider that when you're making your decision, because it's important to partner with somebody that, is aligned with you and with, what you hope to do in your business. And maybe they're doing the things that you hope to do and can get you where you want to be. But that's not the expectation. Like, there is no obligation that EXP says. Essentially, it's just, they were responsible to letting you know that EXP exists and you joined EXP because they influenced your decision basically the most. But it's not because like they have some ongoing obligation to mentor you or coach you or anything like that. That's just basically, on the sponsor's discretion as far as what they are wanting to do, some sponsors, they're hands off and, hey, you join, you can call me or maybe, or, like some, it's like, hey, this is my business. I'm doing this every day. I want to try and help you. So it just depends. So I definitely think that's why it's good to talk through those kinds of things and ask, your sponsor or the person you're potentially thinking about naming as your sponsor, what does this look like if I were to name you as my sponsor for the next, few months, few years, that type of thing. Just kind of get in their head and figure out like what that looks like. All right, guys, we've got just a couple more minutes and then we're gonna have to end. So I got a couple more questions here. Tina says, do you run Facebook ads? What tools do you use to create your ads? I have run Facebook ads. I'm not currently running any right at the moment. I will start again here pretty soon. I didn't use any tools per se. Just, I use the Facebook, ad manager internally. And, sometimes I'd use Canva to like make like a little graphic for it. But in general, I think video ads work best anyways. So like at this point, just make, nice little vertical videos typically, and then display those ads on mobile. That's kind of like what my MO is. If I'm going to run ads today, that's kind of how I'm doing them. And then just, track the effectiveness. The most important thing you can do is just run multiple iterations of an ad, because you can change something so it seems insignificant, like one word in the headline, or, or change the video color or the lighting, or if it's an image, like changing the image a little bit or changing the description, change the call to action instead of, download now, say like, get your free book, right? Just those two differences. You don't know which one is going to work better. So try multiple instances of it, have multiple iterations and testing them, right? So that's the biggest thing you can do. If that sounds like overwhelming, of course, there's a lot of Facebook ad agencies out there that can run your ads for you. I still like having my thumb on the pulse and doing it myself. But it does take a lot of time, So if you're going to do it, make sure it's like you've set aside time for it. It's something that you're prepared to like go research things on YouTube, go research, different things as far as like how to optimize. And then just, let them run for a while, check the effectiveness, turn the ones off that are not doing good, and then constantly be split testing them. So like once you see one that performs really good, make another one that's kind of similar, but you change something, small, one thing at a time. That way you can test, does this next one perform better or worse? And just constantly be reiterating it until you get it better and better and better. So that would be my recommendation there. All right. On the upline beyond the 7, can you tap into the resources further up in the line? Mark, I don't know. I mean, I technically, I guess you could. I mean, it just depends. Like if you know people that are beyond, I don't know how you'd find out who it is unless you just started like calling the people above you and saying like, hey, who's your 7? Most people, just depends, right? Like it's kind of the same thing as a sponsor. Some sponsors are more willing to help do things, some are not, and some have strict rules, like I only help the people on my first 2 lines, or I only, everybody's a little different because again, there's no requirement that anybody does anything to help necessarily. So it's all like up to the person, right? So can't really, answer that for sure with certainty for you, Mark. All right, let's see. Israel says, what script do you use when making contact with the lead from a dialer? Good question, Israel. I can't really answer that. Just as far as time wise goes, I have a lot of videos though that I will say because it is specific to the type of lead that you're going after. If you're calling expireds, there's a different script or a different kind of series of questions that you might ask than if it's a for sale by owner. Then if it's your people that you're calling, your sphere of influence. Then if it's circle prospecting. There's all sorts of different ones like circle prospecting. You're gonna say, hey, Mr. Miss Buyer, I just recently had a sale in your neighborhood for XYZ. You kind of go through the whole thing, right? And then like expireds, there's all sorts of different like techniques. But check it out. I do have an expired script video on my channel, and I do have a listing video script on my channel as well. You'd want to look at those in detail, but then don't just look at mine. I mean, figure out there's a lot of different scripts out there from different, content creators, but also just, from coaches and stuff that will publish their stuff on YouTube. And just check those out. RedX also is a great, library of scripts. But the thing is with scripts, I mean, the important thing that you need to realize is like, I don't read them word for word. I kind of try to internalize them. To figure out like that way I'm saying them the way that I want to say them. I don't go too far off the script. Like I'm not making up my own stuff, but I'm really just trying to understand it. So that way it's not like, sounds like I'm like reading off of a piece of paper. It's more of like, I'm asking them questions, not trying to pry too hard, but I'm just trying to ask questions to be helpful, is kind of the approach that I take when doing like any kind of cold calling or anything like that. So, cool guys. Yep, Ricky Caruth. That's all. Yeah, another good one. Lucas. If you haven't followed Ricky Caruth, check him out. Lucas points out on, he does a lot of stuff with expireds as well. So, and for sale by owners. So, cool. Tim, enjoyed your live. Kyle, thanks. You bet. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you being on here. Well, guys, I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, give it a like. It really means a lot to me. And I love seeing that subscriber count going up. So if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And then I will be back here, guys, next Tuesday, same time, same place. If you're watching this on replay, go ahead and put your questions in the comments. And then those will be the first questions that I answer the following week. So that's just how we're going to keep doing things, guys. I love these live calls. It gives me a good chance to connect with you guys. I still make the 3 videos a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's going to keep going on. But I think the thing that I love the most is these live calls. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope everyone has an amazing week. I am actually heading out to Nashville, Tennessee tomorrow to go to a EXP event actually called the Sprint, which I'm super excited about, qualified for that. and we'll get to go be with a couple of the top influential agents there in Nashville for the next like 2 days from Wednesday to Friday. And so I will be there. I'll be fired up for next week, but I hope everyone has an amazing one. If you need anything, type it out in the comments or message me on Instagram. You can send me a DM on there. That's typically the best way to get in touch with me. But I hope everyone has a great one. Talk to you later.